It's crazy that it's only been 4 years because it feels like it's been a lifetime.
It has. Actually, COVID math tells me 4 years has been a lifetime.
Yeah, for real, for real.
It's a lifetime.
I mean, it's like, you're
Um,
telling me I was home with kids.
I know.
Like,
Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the Serial Entrepreneur Show. So excited to have you listening in to our newest guest. We're excited to have her, Amanda Bauer-Frisch. A resilient serial entrepreneur. It tells me there's a story already when I read her bio, and indeed there is. This is her first business that offers children's gifts and a brand that I think you're going to find is really thoughtful, really practical items that you can give a kiddo that you love. If you are a parent listening in today, I think you're going to bend your ear as you hear the story of how she's overcome some big things that we all should be thinking about as we build our legacy in our business. Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you. Serial Entrepreneurs. Hey, just a reminder, our show is brought to you by SmartCookie Media, where we believe data tells a story, and not just any story, your business story. As a subscriber to the show or as a client, you'll get insights on profitable, data-driven marketing strategies that work for you and your business, your industry. Not some cookie cutter trends, no. Ideas that are led by your customer data so you know they'll work for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram to learn more. Everything's in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank
welcome.
you so much for having me.
I'd like to start the show the same way we do with everybody. Tell me, how would you finish this sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
You're an entrepreneur when the fear of not doing the thing is greater than your fear of failing.
I love that. So I know you've transitioned from a career in HR.
Yes.
That department that many of us that have corporate backgrounds kind of feared and always had a question mark above our heads in that department, that's for sure. And then you went into full-time parenting mode in 2020. It sounds like there's a story, something that was on your heart. Will you share with us that story?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a little bit more backstory there. I worked for a large grocery store chain for almost 10 years, and they were a great employer to me. I worked in human resources, as you said. And in 2017, I had a 1-year-old son, and I was pregnant with my second, working full time. And my husband also worked full time as a sheriff's deputy. And one night we were eating dinner, and he had a weird pain in his throat. And it was unlike anything he had ever felt before. We also knew that his family had a history of heart disease and just general heart stuff going on. So out of an abundance of caution, we thought, let's go to the ER and get this checked out. When we arrived, I fully expected, and so did he, that maybe he had pneumonia. He and I and our son had all had strep throat the week before. So at the beginning...
Yes, strep throat or like a fishbone.
Exactly. Like it's
Right.
complications from strep. He needs a stronger antibiotic. They'll get him fixed up. After we had been in the ER for about 20 minutes, they realized it was something much more serious going on. They realized he was having an aortic dissection, which is where your aortic valve is basically tearing in two. Your aortic valve is actually really long. There's parts that go like into your throat, obviously in your heart, and then it extends down into your abdomen. So where we lived at the time, it was a big hospital, but not big enough to have that level of like a cardiac operating room set up and ready with the right staff. So they were getting a helicopter to transport him to a larger hospital that was going to have an OR set up and ready for an immediate valve replacement in his heart. Unfortunately, the tear was so significant, he passed away about 2 hours after we got to the emergency room that night. He wasn't ever even able to get on the helicopter because he wasn't stable enough.
How does that happen? Not the waiting part, but how do you go from eating and hoping it's complications from strep? Me just hoping it's maybe a fishbone.
Yeah.
That happened to my
Right.
mother-in-law. It was super annoying, but like hoping. I knew how the story was going to end, but my goodness, how do you go from eating around the table? Like, how did that actually happen? He was born this way. It just came up then. What happened?
Yeah, great question. And it's one that I have been asking since he died. And I've kind of gone on a medical hunt to solve this mystery.
Yeah.
He did know that he was born with an aortic valve that was slightly larger than average. And when I mean slightly larger, I'm talking about like 1 millimeter larger. So very small, but significant when you're talking about your aortic valve. It was something he had been monitored for. He saw his cardiologist 8 months before he died, and he got an all clear, like, we'll see you next year. He had lost 50 pounds on his own. He was like in the best shape of his life when he passed away. So he was born with this, slightly too large, but I felt like there was more to the story. Not that our medical people did anything wrong, but that maybe there was more that could have been done. What I have discovered since he passed away, and actually there was like a very major paper about the condition I believe he had that was published late in 2017, which is the year he died. So I think part of the unfortunate part for Adam is some of this stuff related to his condition is really kind of on the forefront of medical, research and definition and all that kind of stuff. So I now know that he had a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and there are 13 different subtypes, some that are able to detect with a genetic test and they can see the genetic variant. He did have one of those types that specifically impacted his heart. If his cardiologist had known that when he was alive, he would have never gotten an all clear at the cardiologist. He would have been monitored so closely. If we had known this, he would have never been a sheriff's deputy because that was probably one of the worst jobs for someone like him with your blood pressure spikes in ways that you can't predict in that line of work. And that wasn't good for his body in hindsight and knowing what we know now. So I've learned that over the last, almost 7 years.
So you said I'm sorry, I want to make sure for Eller's what?
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
How else does it manifest? Because you said there's 13 different ways. Your husband had one in which it was predisposed to his heart. Is there other ways it manifests or, shows symptoms?
Yes, there are. And I think that is one of the reasons why Adam's case was missed, because the most common way it presents is through the hypermobile subtype. And it typically doesn't cause a lot of problems in their life, but they are usually like double jointed. They're very flexible. They have more elastic skin. There's like a 10-minute kind of like physical exam that a doctor can do to determine, oh, yep, you have this most common subtype. Adam didn't have any of that. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, there are 13 different subtypes. I don't know how all of them present, but they all are connective tissue disorders is how they are related.
Okay.
And all affect different types of connective tissues in your body.
Wow.
Yes. So I knew this story would be part of the show. Thank you so much for sharing it and sharing it so early, because I think it sets up the rest of what you do and your heart behind it and your husband's legacy as well and what you do for your kiddos. So you have 2 kiddos?
Now I have 3. So fast forward and how I became an entrepreneur. At the beginning of the pandemic, I had recently gotten remarried and we added our 3rd son to the mix. My new husband adopted my first 2 and I was a stay-at-home mom by choice. And then the pandemic hit and I realized I was not meant to be a stay-at-home mom. Stay-at-home parenting has a unique skill set that I do not possess. So I started making these wood banks in my garage. I wanted a wood bank for my son. My oldest son was ready to start earning an allowance, and my late husband, Adam, was really passionate about financial literacy. So I thought if there's one thing I teach these kids about their dad, it's going to be that. I wanted him to have a bank that had a compartment for give, save, spend. And I made a couple in my garage and engraved the kids' names on top. And then my new husband encouraged me to list them online. So I started an Etsy store. And, I was really just hoping to get like one sale. And then I got a sale. And then it was like, well, maybe I'll get 10. And then it's like, well, if I can get 100, then I've really made it. And they just kept coming. It was such a pleasant surprise, and it was not something I had anticipated in the beginning. But then once I realized that there was a demand, I realized I could make this into a real business, more than just what I thought initially was going to be kind of a side hobby.
Can we see a version of the box? Give, save, spend box? Bank your
Absolutely.
boxes.
This is our Give, Save, Spend bank. And you can see the
Beautiful.
front is acrylic. The top opens up. This is engraved with our name, but we engrave the top with your kid's name. We also have a lot of companies that like to engrave their logo on the back and give it to their clients.
Beautiful. Do people usually buy one for each kid? Should you buy it for 2 kids? Do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, typically families will get one for each kid. We see a lot of parents starting around age 5, when they really start trying to introduce those concepts. I mean, we get a lot of people that buy them as baby gifts, but we really see like that age 5 is where the kid starts becoming curious about the topic. I will also say that we get a lot of requests to change the words on the front, which we can absolutely do. The standard version is give, save, spend, but we have some families that prefer to say tithe, save, and spend. Or there's a Hebrew word, tzedakah, which means charity. And so we call them the tzedakah boxes for our Jewish friends. So we can do it in Spanish, whatever you'd like.
So beautiful.
So Adam had this desire and drive for financial literacy. Where did that come from? Did he go to like a Dave Ramsey course or something?
Oh, yeah. Dave Ramsey was always on the radio in our house. I still think his teachings are really great. And obviously, like the Give, Save, Spend thing is a fantastic foundation. When I met Adam in my early 20s, I had a lot of credit card debt. I had student loans that I just didn't really know how to kind of manage my life. And he taught me how to make sure I'm paying my bills on time and, don't have credit card debt. Really what my goal is now with Small Legacies is to just kind of help normalize the topic of financial literacy and make it more of a topic people are comfortable talking about. Because for me as an early adult, it was just a topic that I didn't want to talk about. I just kind of wanted to pretend it didn't exist. So I think if we can help normalize the topic, it's not a bad topic. It has no emotion. It's a tool.
I've got to set up the lawyer question here, Matt. I got to set you up here. So because he was that way, I'm guessing that showed up at the end of his life, right? Because his affairs may have been in order, that made a difference in your life. Matt works in real estate and estate planning, and he's a lawyer. He just generally sees all the rough stuff that humans throw at him, humans that know him, other humans that don't know him. So he's seen it all. So immediately I think of estate planning. And when you tell me that someone, is financially literate the way that he was and always had someone on the radio in his ear sharing with you in your early 20s, I'm guessing that showed up at the end of his life as well and took care of you and the kiddos.
Yes and no, I will say. He was incredibly organized and he did all the financial planning for our house. He paid all of the bills. It's common. I've met many widows and, how do you pay the light bill? You don't even know how to log in. But Adam had all of that kind of information in a spreadsheet. Because of his medical background, we had tried to get life insurance, but he had been denied. So we did have some life insurance. And I have met many widows that have literally gotten zero life insurance, and we were not in that camp. But also the industry standard is to have 10 times your income. We're not at that end of the spectrum either. But we were smart enough, and because we didn't have any debt when he passed away and we were in a house that we could, comfortably afford on our income, the kids and I were set up for long-term success even without him. And then when I got remarried, then, it added another level of security there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's remarkable to me, regardless of whether or not you might follow Mr. Ramsey's approach or something as simple as what you're doing and showing people and demonstrating, even at the youngest of ages, how you can have discipline with your finances and what you can do. Just the mere fact that he was able to do the right things on some of the most, I'd say, simplistic financial disciplines and help set you up for, I guess you'd say, a little bit more easier of a time than maybe, not that you ever want to compare yourself to others in those situations, but it's a testimony, I guess you'd say, to his life and what he was doing already living that it carried forward even upon the tragic circumstances of his death.
Yes, I've met many widows, many younger widows like myself, and it's an unfortunate truth, but it is extremely true that having access to funds after a major death like that can significantly ease some of the burden that has to happen after a death. And I feel horrible saying that, but it is just reality. So, I think it is a loving thing that you can do for your family to make sure, even if you're not able to, like Adam, get full coverage, there are things you can do to help ease any potential hardship after a death.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a beautiful legacy. I mean,
yes,
that's why you called it that. So how has your business changed? Because I'm guessing that was still 2020 when you were doing that. How has your business changed as the world returns to whatever the world is today?
Yeah, it's crazy that it's only been 4 years because it feels like it's been a lifetime.
It has. Actually, COVID math tells me 4 years has been a lifetime.
Yeah, for real. For real.
It's a lifetime.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you're telling me I was at home with kids.
Same, friend. Same. Yeah.
Yeah. So my husband, my new one, he loves when I call him that. When the banks really started taking off and the orders were coming in so much that I couldn't keep up by myself, he left his job to join me in our garage and build banks full time. And for about a year and a half, he was the woodworker and I did the packaging and the customer service. And we did that all in our house. Then we found a wood toy manufacturer who makes the woodworking part of the bank. And we still engrave the names on tops and send them out from our wood shop. We tried to brainstorm ways that we could add to the financial literacy community. And anyone that's in that community knows there's a lot of great resources for like high school age students. A lot of states now have mandates that kids have to have some type of financial literacy before they graduate. But what we also saw is that there isn't a lot of resources for the youngest students. And after Adam died, I started sponsoring our local middle school so that they could have access to financial literacy curriculum. And it went so well for the first couple of years. But the number one thing that those students said was, I have never heard some of these words before. Like, this is the first time in my life I'm hearing about it. So about a year and a half ago, we hired a teacher on our team to start creating a curriculum for elementary age students that can be taught in school to help lay some of this foundational financial literacy stuff. We're not talking about credit scores or, credit cards or anything like that, but just general giving and saving and earning money are all concepts that kids can learn and help normalize the topic so that by the time they do get to middle school and high school, they have a good foundation and they can learn some of the more complicated things.
Money was a hot topic growing up for me in an entrepreneur's household. However, to learn how to buy my first car on my own, like a brand new car, I was 18, 19, the way I was going to figure it out, it took a lot. It was really, really difficult. But as soon as I finished college, I was like, I'm going to go work in a dealership to learn finance just to figure that out. And then when I was ready to buy a house, I was like, I'm going to go do mortgages so I can make sure I figure that. Because I didn't feel like we got it at home or at school anywhere else, even though my family always talked about money or the lack thereof sometimes. So I think that's really, really powerful. In fact, I ended up sitting on the board for Junior Achievement of Chicago in our Northwest Indiana division for 10 years. So they might be a fantastic resource and partner with you as well as you create those, because we did it all the way from K through 8. A whole
Oh,
bunch
yeah.
of different lesson plans. And you bring in corporate community members. And especially with your HR background, there might be people that want to donate what we call the JA in a day. And they just give time to one school and people walk in with their little books. It might give you some inspiration.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Amanda, I mean, this is where I just take over the show for a second and talk about like what's happening in my life and my kids and stuff like that. And sometimes it makes the cut for you listeners, you know that. And sometimes you don't even hear the stuff that I just go
Sometimes
off
you don't
with.
even know. Yeah.
You don't even know. You don't even know.
You
But
don't
let me
even
tell you
know.
right now, this is hitting home for me because I just did a cruise with my 2 kids and my kids are 6 and 8. And we're just at that point where we're giving some small tasks to the 6-year-old. The 8-year-old does garbage and things like that. He knows he has a job. And we've been trying to ease into this concept of allowances. And so one of the things that we're butting up against a little bit is, you always want to do better than maybe what your parents did for you. You want to give your kids a better life. You want to give them better things. You want to take them on the cruises and see the world and things. But then there becomes this little two-edged sword, I call it, of, and I don't want to say entitlement. I mean, let me tell you right now, as the parent, I'm hearing a Brent. Let me tell you, right? But I also know we're creating the monster. And as a parent, we're running into this. And so what ends up happening is, when I've heard Mr. Ramsey reference keeping up with the Joneses, what I find myself in the struggle is finding the right tools and mechanisms to start to teach them about, okay, money doesn't grow on trees. There isn't what's next after you're in the middle of the ocean on this amazing boat, on these amazing excursions and going, okay, that's cool, but what do we do next now? It's like, learning and some appreciation. Nicole and I, we've talked about our entrepreneurial background and being raised by, different types of people who had to struggle sometimes and
You
strive.
mean no money, 80s.
Yes.
80s. Yes.
I talk about my grandparents flea marketing and picking and things like that to make extra income. I saw, I knew my parents would send me to my grandparents because they didn't have the money to watch me or pay for a babysitter in the summertime. I knew that growing up. My kids don't know that. And so when I hear about what you're doing, it's such a great tool to just introduce these basic concepts of, hey, money doesn't grow on trees. This is what we should be doing. And even then, when I think about it, I start to go down the path of, hey, when we play Monopoly in life, there's not a spot there for tithe or give, right? And yet there should be, because there should be a spot in there to talk about when do you give money back and where does it go, right? Other than taxes. I'm just excited to see somebody doing something, and I'm going to be a buyer because it can start to show them that example. So it's coming in a unique time because I just was going through this, sitting in the boat going, these ungrateful little you-know-whats.
I struggle the same thing. We have obviously the banks at our house, but it's still a work in progress. Like, I don't want to act like this has solved all of our problems either, but it is a great conversation facilitator. And it's a really beautiful product. And that is one thing that when I was looking for this for my son, like if you go on Amazon, they're all just like cheap plastic, maybe with the Paw Patrol logo on it or something. And I knew it would never last a season. And this is something that I think is really beautiful that people don't mind having out on their counter or, on display.
I created actually a little app for she's not a kid, but she was my kid's sister. And I don't think any part of her income was available to give to anything else besides just the things that she just had to have as a starving college student who needed to get her finances together and understand adulting, right? How you talked about that early 20-year-old yourself. And so I appreciate the 3 buckets. I also, Mike Michalowicz, he wrote a children's book as well. He's one of my favorite business authors. You might know him, Profit First and Get Different Marketing. Anyway, he has Money Bunnies, I think. And it's very, very similar concepts we've all heard of now as adults, but they haven't heard maybe early on. So maybe you two need to chat, meet up. If I can connect you two, I will. However, Matt, to your point, Gary Vee was recently talking about how his kids, I'm going to paraphrase terribly. And if he wants to come on the show, Gary, and you can correct me, like just verbally abuse and correct me, no problem. But I'm going to grossly paraphrase that he's saying like they don't have the same want because there's not the same want that I wanted, that he had as a kid, right? And I can see that. In fact, I can guarantee you when I buy this, and I will buy this bank for them because we had a similar, it was just one bucket bank. It had a clear front so they could see the money. And it was all for Disney last year. I never went as a kid. My husband never went. We'd never gone together and we were going to save. And every single time they got, I'm telling you, $1, even the little 3-year-old was like shoving it in $20. If we sold things on Facebook Marketplace, it was such a cool way for them to see that grow. However, making sure that they have something that's bigger than themselves, that they want something is sometimes hard. This week, it was they wanted another pair of boxing gloves because brother got some and the other brother didn't. Where my 6-year-old, about to be 7, he has told me, well, I want a pool. We can only do an in-ground pool in our subdivision.
Sorry.
And I was like, yeah, right, exactly. I'm like, well, cool. Dad and I want to pay cash for that pool if we're going to get one. And he's like, okay. And so anytime he gets it out, he's like, okay, can I just put this in the pool fund? And, bless his heart, it's $5 or it's $10 or whatever, right? And I'm like, man, that's like my heart for him, right? However, it will make him want something really big. I think it's up to us parents. I mean, I don't know if everybody wants a pool or not. But by golly, if it's going to teach my kid, man, we didn't have money for a pool, but we worked for it. Like, okay. Then, because otherwise, yeah, I always worry about raising a couple of brats. I mean, I went to school not knowing where lunch money was going to show up and come from. And somehow my dad made it happen many mornings. And shout out to Dan making it happen. But if my kid doesn't have lunch, it's because I forgot it. I need to run it back up there, right? We can work those things out. Where in the 80s, there was no credit the way there is now. It just was different. And how do we help them to want something bigger than themselves?
And I think there's a message there behind it with the give spot of it too, because how do we make a big difference in this world is also, in my opinion, with the next generation, instilling good values on wanting to make a difference and showing them how do you give back? How do you actually, give money to something that can make a big difference and stuff. And if you're not giving them the opportunity to do it at such a young age, I'm laughing because I'm envisioning now your give spot for your sister in college, like 50-cent pitcher night, because otherwise I can't get my 50 cents to a pitcher of beer, but it's the idea that she was the charity.
She was then gifted to someone else.
Exactly. She was the charity in college, but I do think that there's something there because you just brought up Gary Vee and I was going to send this clip to you and I forgot. It was late at night, a couple nights ago. I think he was talking with, I believe his wife, and she was talking about how now there's this new movement amongst people. It wasn't financial shaming, but it was like financial transparency. When I graduated high school, even going on to college, my own group of friends, we don't always talk money per se, like it's a taboo topic. And yet there's certain groups of people like Nicole and I will talk about money.
We talk about money.
But it's kind of interesting now because it sets a tone with our kids in the neighborhood. Oh, well, that sounds like they're bragging or whatever. No, it's the idea of, when I say I don't want the expenses of dogs every time I have to go on vacation, an additional $1,000 or $2,000 in doggy daycare and all the costs that go along with that, until I know we have the goal of our savings in the spot we want, till I know we have an investment in a piece of real estate, maybe in Florida or something. And it sounds kind of crappy. I get it. Like some of our friends were like, oh, Matt won't get a dog until he gets his property in Mexico. You're damn right I won't, because that's the goal. And it's
that's priorities. Yeah.
It's back to a priority. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go finance a brand new car because the priority is different for me. I want something that's going to cash flow for me. I want something that's going to change my family's life and their legacy. And what I found interesting going back to Gary Vee was his wife was talking about how it's becoming.
Not his wife. I just want to put out there that if he wants to correct us and come at us, it definitely wasn't his wife. But go on.
It wasn't? I believe
Is he single?
He is single now. He's divorced.
Oh. Okay. Whoops. All right. So maybe it was an old clip.
The last couple years.
Okay. So maybe it was an old clip that they were publishing. Okay. Correction. It was on Gary Vee's. A female was talking about this idea of being more transparent within your own groups of friends And
Yeah.
it's okay to talk about money. It's okay to say, and you know what? We're not going to do a vacation this year. Sorry, just let you guys know, because we're saving for something else or money's tight or whatever. It's just always been a taboo topic.
We certainly all had the conversation with everybody over Disney. That's for sure. And I
I'm
think some
sure
adults were like, am I really giving to your Disney fund? You can give the kid $25 for him to push it in there. And he's so excited. So maybe we'd all be a little more transparent, Matt, to your point on what
Yes.
we're giving to, what we're saving for, what we're spending, and just have the conversation. I don't know about you two, but grandparents, I feel like, are the one category of humans that walk into my home with more stuff
Oh, gosh.
than I care to think about and I toss out. Or even like what somebody sent home from school, like conduct treats, they're called. They're like, I
What?
don't know, little tchotchkes. They're like a eraser and like a sticker and like a noisemaker. And they're in like a plastic bag. Maybe there's some candy or a fruit snack. And I would much rather, despite all the sugar, walk in with Crumble cookies or Dunkin' Donuts, always looking for sponsors to both of you, and walk in and have the experience with my kid that he gets to have a treat in class because I'm able to do that. I get not every parent is. Then giving them this stuff that I cannot wait to throw out the second my kid looks away from it. But that's my priority, right? And that other mom may have needed to do that because she couldn't be there with them. So I understand that. But when we can communicate even to the grandparents, hey, we'd rather you spend something on a ticket, take them to the monster truck show. Don't bring in the stuff.
Hey there, busy movers and shakers. I get it. You're out there conquering the business world, hustling day in, day out. Well, guess what? We've got something to amplify your efforts, something that's about to make your entrepreneurial journey even more exciting. Introducing our podcast production services, your ticket to sharing your knowledge and stories without breaking a sweat. We know your time is gold. That's why our team of podcast pros will take the reins, handle all of the behind the scenes stuff. From brainstorming fun topics, introducing you to incredible guests, polishing up those episodes, repurposing your content so you can share among lots of platforms. We're here to turn your ideas into a podcast that's as easygoing as your favorite chat over coffee. Imagine establishing your expertise and your authority, making connections all across the globe in just minutes a month. And the fun doesn't end there. Our data-savvy approach gives you insights that will help you fine-tune your content and connect with your audience even better than before. So join forces with a crew that's as enthusiastic about your podcast as you are about your business. The SmartCookie Media crew. Let your voice resonate, your stories inspire, and your ideas spread like wildfire. Level up your personal brand through the magic of podcasting, whether you choose audio only or video too. Are you ready to dive into podcasting? Your journey to share your knowledge starts right here because it's your voice, your podcast with our expertise. SmartCookie Media, turning your stories into conversations.
I want to touch on something. You introduced it a while ago. We'll call him the new one, right? I believe he loves when he's being called the new one, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
He quit his job and is now in the business with you. Help me a little bit about that dynamic, about being married, in business together. Are there any struggles in the business? I mean, we always like to talk about these fun things that you're doing.
She laughs.
Yes. But like, are there any struggles in the business?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, every day. Working with your spouse is not for everybody. We love it, but it's definitely something that we work really hard at and something that requires constant communication. Because what I thought he was going to be doing when he left his job and what he thought he was going to be doing for my growing business were not necessarily aligned right away. I mean, maybe they were like 50% aligned. He's very smart. He's the smartest person I know, but he's also kind of dumb sometimes too. And I'm the same way. And so you have to figure out like, what are my strengths and what do I bring to the table? And also what fills my cup and what really drains you. So that is a constant. We're in a much better place now. We've been working together for like 2.5 years, probably since he left his job. In the beginning, it was just a lot of kind of looking at workload, figuring out where things fit best. Now we've grown to a spot where we've hired some more team members. It's just a constant work in progress. And you can never like fool yourself into thinking like, I've made it or this is perfect because something's going to change.
What did he do before?
He was the chief psychologist for the prison system in our state. So he had a really big job. That was a transition coming home and, sweating in the wood shop in our garage for 13 hours a day, versus like helping people have therapy.
I'm just envisioning the first fight. What did you think you're going to be doing? We make banks out of wood.
What's the sign say behind you?
Oh,
What's that
yeah.
say? Life is tough, my darling, but so are you. Beautiful.
There you go.
What is one of the key lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur? Maybe it's something you find yourself saying again and again.
The biggest thing I've learned is really to celebrate the wins that you have, even the small wins or the things that don't feel like a super big deal. When you celebrate those small things, it can really help get you through when maybe it's a rougher patch or you need, a little pick me up. And so celebrating the wins, I think, is how I've been able to help myself kind of have that growth mindset and focus on the positive.
I mean, how would you define your entrepreneurial success?
Okay, I'm careful in this line of thinking because I have gotten caught in this trap before. Rainn Wilson is an actor from the show The Office, and I've heard him talk about this, that when he was at the height of his career on the show, he still felt like, okay, what's next? I got to have something more, and like something is missing. And then, after he got off the show and a few years later, through the gift of hindsight, he realized I was living my dream at that time, and I was too consumed with like what's next to realize it. And I see myself getting caught in that a lot. And I think everybody kind of can fall into that tendency. I think, though, for me, what defines success and how I try to like keep myself aligned is that I have the balance in my life to be able to be a mom at the times when it's important to me to be a mom. And I can also focus on work at the times that I need to focus on that without the stress of, oh my gosh, I also have kids at home. And if I can do that balance peacefully, that's winning. Of course, I want to like do all of the things and make it to the like all of the finish line, but I'm trying to be realistic about that too.
Beautiful. Okay, so what's the link that you want us to know more about? I know you just had a TEDx in Oshkosh. So
Yes.
tell us where we find that. And then, of course, where we find the banks.
Yeah, I would love for you to check out my TEDx video. It's only 7 minutes on YouTube in defense of participation trophies. If anyone would like to debate about participation trophies, I'm down for that anytime.
Gary V would. Gary V. See, 3
Oh,
reasons
yeah.
Gary should be. Come
Yeah.
back to the show.
I'll need to,
Yes.
I love that. Yes.
copy him.
Yeah.
And then you can find us online at smalllegacies.com.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
Yes.
guys
Thanks,
for having
Amanda.
me.
Hey, it's Nicole, and that's the end of the interview. But stick around. This is the part where Matt and I break it all down and give you our favorite takeaways. Listen in.
All right. So the first thing I noticed is that, when we did our wrap up questions, when we talked about a mantra that she says, celebrate the wins, no matter how small they are, no matter when you get there. That makes a lot of sense to me when she talked about her definition of success. And she referenced then Rainn Wilson and talking about sometimes you're there and you may not even know it because you're looking for that next thing. I just thought that was really interesting how both of those things kind of wrapped up together. We ask those questions all the time to wrap up the show. And very few and far in between do I hear the logical connection between those two. And hers was actually relatively perfect.
Yeah. Well thought out. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How about you? Got some?
So we'd be remiss to say what an incredible legacy that her husband, Adam, left for her and her kids, right? Not only in the way that he took care of them, I'm sure in life with his organization habits of finances, but then even after death, I think that's pretty phenomenal, and how it's continuing to take care of so many others in her community, across the country, and maybe across the globe by now that she's shipping out these banks. I think it's really powerful, and how it's really starts with like that one story and that one heart. She mentioned heart, willing to do that because you couldn't imagine doing anything else. How powerful is that to enroll others in the journey of money? Like she said that even in the burden of death, of becoming a widow, it was money that still made some things easier. You didn't have to worry about, kid being hungry or taking care of the light bill or mortgage. Money makes things easier. So important that we all have some transparency around finances, that we all consider our own legacy. We'd be remiss if we didn't say that's exactly what this episode was all about.
I agree.
Well, friends, you know what we say. If you're listening,
keep listening.
You've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at SmartCookie Media.